Let's talk about creative restrictions. Creative restrictions are one of the most important things you could possibly do to increase your productivity as an artist. So many artists, especially myself when I was younger, create like a script, let's say, and they're like, I want to have a spaceship in it. I want to have, 100 different locations. There's 25 casts. The number one word I would use to something that I hate is when I hear the word world building. If I hear the word world building, I freak out. I'm like, okay, no. We're making a movie. We don't need to worry about the world. We need to worry about what's on screen. I think that so many writers get sort of distracted and they want to make these giant stories when they live in a situation where they can't even produce that type of story, And that's not to say you don't want to keep those ideas. Those ideas are great, but they're better for developing long term. Those are things you want to, put in the back burner and work on slowly with time as you improve your skills. But creative restrictions can be very important. I've made over 30 feature films. I can't even talk right now. I've created 30 feature films, and a majority of them have been in 1, 2, or 3 locations. And the reason why I've been able to produce so much work is because I don't really care about how many locations we have or how much cast we have. A good story can come from anywhere. I made a movie literally in a hotel. It was a movie about purgatory, about a guy who dies. He goes to purgatory and he's trapped in the place that he died. He dies in a hotel room. And so he's stuck in the hotel and he can't leave. And it's just a one-person acted film. It's me in the movie. I'm the only one acting in it. And honestly, it's still, to this day, one of my favorite movies I've made because I don't have, a way to put it other than, it was a creative idea. If I had, 20 or 30 people making that movie, I don't think it would have been as interesting. I think the movie was interesting because it's like, oh, here's Dan by himself in a room, trying to create a story that he can do by himself in a room, in a hotel. And I had so many interesting situations that happened, okay? There's empty hallways because the hotel was always dead when I was there. And so I'd film out in the hallway or I'd film in the pool. Oh, he can't leave the hotel? There's a force field around the hotel. He can't leave. And you start coming up with these creative ideas. Oh, he needs food. How is he going to survive? He has water that replenishes and food that replenishes that all the time whenever he needs it. You start coming up with these creative ideas, and then suddenly you have a much more interesting story. You're like, oh, what's going on here? This is kind of an interesting idea now. I think that's something that's really fun to play with, is to be in a situation where you're coming up with solutions and coming up with creative ideas to things that people wouldn't even generally think about. That's where creative restrictions are really important, especially when you're trying to create, any sort of body of work. I think putting a healthy restriction on top of yourself is something that's going to change how you create forever. Because now you're in a situation where you're like, hey, I'm going to put a restriction on, I'm going to spend 2 hours working on a short film. Okay, great. You're going to spend 2 hours working on it. Then you can put out, a short film every week. If you spend 2 hours on it, you could spend 2 hours every week doing it. Awesome. That's a creative restriction. I'm going to spend every day and I'm going to write 3 pages. That's a creative restriction. I'm going to limit all my ideas that I'm going to create to 1 to 2 locations. Creative restriction. These are all great ideas that are going to get you to produce more work, especially if you're like a filmmaker. If you're a writer, I'd say the restrictions that might be better are page count, how many you're going to do a day, limiting yourself to focusing on just the script and less on world building, working on just focusing yourself and targeting yourself towards creating pages and getting things out. Everyone has creative restrictions they can work with. If you're a musician, it might be limiting yourself to certain instruments or certain effects that you might need to use and to train yourself to get better at it. The only way you're really going to ever sort of grow as an artist is by giving yourself these little restrictions that you're going to have that are going to feel hampering at first. They're going to feel like they are stopping you from doing what you want to do. But in reality, you're developing a style. You're developing a house style and a taste to what you're doing. And the only way to develop taste is to take away things. Imagine a chef, and he has a plate, and he's got French fries on it, and a burger, and then pizza, and then jalapenos, and then there's milk on top. it sounds disgusting, right? If you just put everything out there, if you use all the ingredients and you don't have any restrictions, you know, it's going to taste disgusting. I think cooking possibly is the most primary form of restriction, because it's what you don't put in there that's important as much as what you do put in there. You know, you're going to make chicken parm. There are certain ingredients you need to make chicken parm. There are certain things that would taste absolutely disgusting if you put it in chicken parm. View your art like cooking a little bit, because there are going to be certain things that if you just keep putting giant ideas out there and just include everything and don't restrict, you're going to be in a situation where you're going to sort of mess with the sauce a little bit. And people want the sauce to be good. They want it to be good, and they don't want it to feel like a million other sauces they've tried. They want it to feel unique and special. And I can tell you, creative restriction is a really good way to start making yourself stand out. Think of the movie Saw. It's like mostly like just like a one room kind of like thing. Like, oh, we're gonna be in a room and there's this crazy guy and he's gonna, you know, torture these people, and it's like all these little just like contained areas. That's a movie anyone could do. And that's how they ended up getting it in the first place. They made like a short film. I was watching the little short film they made, and they made a short film and then it became a feature film. And they didn't need a giant location to be like, oh, this is interesting, because there's a crazy guy with a mask on and he's torturing people. That's enough. That's enough that's going to make people interested in the film itself. So you don't need a lot of flashy stuff to get people engaged. You just need to be really targeted with what you do. And if what you're going to do is, you know, create movies that are on a small scale or create stories that are on a small scale, all you need to do is just focus on that. People love romance, people love horror, people love drama. They just need the real, raw, distilled version of that. They don't want to have a bunch of, you know, random things that are, you know, polluting the story and making it more convoluted. What they really need is just something that's really raw, basic, and, you know, to the point. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. Talking about creative restrictions, I'm giving myself a creative restriction this year, which is, you know, one angle, one camera, just talking, and we're gonna see how that works out this year. So thank you for enjoying the video, and you have a good one, okay? Bye-bye.